Hi everyone, my name's Nick Hayden. Welcome back for another Codercise episode where we will be extending our Strapi website. So today we're going to be building on top of our existing little website that we've got over here. So last time we left this, we were adding a little bit of React to pull data out of Strapi. We'll do a real quick refresher just on what we've done so far. So we've set up a Strapi environment. Strapi is a headless CMS and is built on Node.js and JavaScript. So we've built some pages out here. We've got some content in here, a couple of links, a couple of related pages down the bottom. Next, we worked on coming over here into our front-end application, which is just a create React app, where we're fetching data from the page. This is all just getting it for the home page right now. So even if we go to other pages, you'll see that we're still getting the same content. So we'll be changing that at the moment today, and then we'll be adding in some styling for the site as well. So to get started with the styles, I thought we would use styled components. It's a pretty popular library. Really common sort of thing you'll see in the workplace a lot as well. So we'll be getting started just by following these installation documents. We're using create React app, so it should sort of be pretty automatic for us as well. So the reason we use something like styled components is, I guess at the base level, we're doing something like this. You can see on the example here, they've got a title, which is Hello World. So that title we're calling in styled, which is the styled components library, using H1, and then the template literal, which is this sort of backtick notation. And then you've just got your styles underneath. So this is pretty simple. I guess you're probably wondering why we would use it. And for a very simple case, if we were just making this box, then CSS is the right choice. There's no need to load in a whole library just to do this. So you can see here, as we've done this, we've created this component now, which has got the title. They've got a wrapper here as well, which is a section element. And if we inspect this, we should actually see it is a H1. Yeah, so you can see here it's a H1 wrapped with a section, which reflects here it is a H1 wrapped in a section. So you've got title and then wrapper. So this is really simple version, and this is probably what we're going to be looking like as we're starting today with styled components. I guess as they've said here, we can change this around. If I change that to 2, it's going to be much bigger, or 1, or whatever else. So very sort of simple example there. What becomes a little bit more useful, especially when we're in the JavaScript world, we want to be able to take in props. So in this case, they've got a primary button and a normal button. So when there's a props, we take that in. If prop primary is true, it's a JavaScript ternary here, we're going to have pale violet red. Otherwise, we're going to have white. And you can see that just here. And if we come down and look at this HTML here, they've got the primary prop, which is set as true. And then that's there. And if I remove that prop, nope, this is not a live editor. Okay. If I remove that, you would end up with the normal button. Cool. So that's probably a good enough kind of example, and we'll hop into it now and start kind of showing how we can style this page. We're going to give it a navigation and then some nice styling in there, and then we'll start adding some components in. So we're going to have a real dynamic CMS and give some really cool content creation capability for our clients, ourselves. The premise of this website is that it is a marketing website for the Codercise brand. We'll see if I end up using it. I guess for some examples, we've got like tilde. I think this is quite a kind of nice website. We might look at creating something like this where we can share some videos, share some content, and we'll give it a go. So let's hop in and start installing styled components. So I'm going to follow along here. I'm just going to grab, so package name is styled components. So I'm going to hop here and create a new tab. I already have these two applications running. This one here is my front end create React app. And then this one here is my Strapi build. They're both running in development mode. And if that changes, I will let you know. So yarn, add styled components, and we're going to let this kind of tick away for a minute. Over here, they also talk about adding in resolutions to a package JSON file. And I will wait for this to finish before I start making changes to package JSON. I'll just chuck that in at the bottom. Oops, it didn't work. Cool. Saving it. Just gonna restart my Create React app again. It does mention adding some sort of like Babel plugins. We'll just skip that for now. That's not going to be too useful for us in a minute. Next, let's get started with, I'm just going to copy their example. Copy their example. I'm going to hop over to app.js. This is where we were sort of adding in our content before. I'm just going to add it here. I'm going to import, what's the import? I can't remember if it's the whole bit. Installation being started. So what I'm looking for here is just the instructions on importing it and whether it is entirely, here we go. So it's like this. So there's no object. Here we're importing the entire component. I'm going to import styled from styled components. You notice we've still got this CSS file. We'll get rid of that in a bit. Refresh. We'll just check out our terminal. Cool. Everything is still working as we want it to. I'm going to hop in here. I'm just going to create another div for now, just to make sure it's working just like we expect it to. So we had our titles up here somewhere. Here we are. Now I'm just going to grab these components. So I've already included these classes just up here. And now I'm going to include the markup underneath it. I'm going to save that. I'm going to come over here and look at the page, and would you look at that, we already have our styled components immediately appearing. For those of you watching the live stream, that'll be 8 minutes from the start of me waffling through to getting a pretty nice looking component. So what's nifty about this as well is if you look on the left hand side, we've kind of got everything just in this source directory, just like right at the root level. I'm going to create a components folder. For now, we can call this one maybe title. Okay. I'm going to create a new folder called title. And within title, I'm going to create title.js. Also going to create title, I'm going to call this one title styles.js. This could be kind of whatever you want it to do. And I'm just going to have another component in here that's like wrapper. Maybe page container is a better name for it. So here we're going to import our React. We probably don't need use effect and stuff, do we? So we'll just import React from React. We'll have a function here, which is going to be title. We're going to have return, which will just be like h1 hello world. I'm just going to comment out that for the minute, just because we don't want conflict. Variables, we'll get rid of that app.css, we're not using that anymore. We'll say import title from components, title. Often you'll see people call this file here index.js. That is perfectly fine and means you can do imports like this. Where it gets really confusing is in your editor you'll end up with about 15 files all called index.js, and that's not always easy to sort of get around. It can also be really hard when you're doing merge requests with a larger team and you're trying to look at 15 different files that have all been edited and they're all called index.js. Becomes a bit hard to talk about, to reason about. So I do this kind of, I don't know if you'd call it like double naming or double importing or something. We've got title and then title. And all this is doing is telling it to look in components, the title, and then title.js. I will need to export this function, and what is the syntax for that? And then export. Cool. We have this. This is importing. Do we have any errors? Cannot resolve it. Cannot resolve components, title in here, so we might just need to put a dot in front of that maybe. Does that help? That helped. And you can see here, now we've lost our styles, but our component is rendering. And to prove that, I'm going to come back over to title, just add like an exclamation mark here. There we go. And you can see in app.js, regardless of what we enter, this is not going to change the content. And the reason for that is that we're not showing it. We're choosing not to render that. And if you look here, you can see we've got children with the content. So what's a better way to do this? Come in here, we've got a h1. We're going to change this to be props.children. We need to include props as a parameter in our function. So here, now our content's updated. Right? How easy was that? So that's like a real simple kind of React component that's like the fundamentals of React. So if this is the first time seeing React, you shouldn't be scared. This is all pretty standard stuff. So now we have this title styles file, which we're going to be importing into here. So import let's get started in the file before I start trying to name things. So we'll import styled from styled components. We can say const page title equals styled dot h1. Oops. And here we're just going to have some styles, so we'll call it like font size, let's make it like 22 pixels, text align center, color red. Okay. And down here we're going to go export. What should we call it? Page title, I guess. Because we have just one style in here, we'll make that the default export as well. But we'll be changing that pretty shortly. Yeah, so we're going to import page title from title styles. Just going to name that capital so we have like a consistent naming convention. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter what you name this sort of stuff, as long as you're consistent within your application. As long as you're, as long as you know what it means and you can reason about it, you can explain it to others, you'll be fine. here, now you can see that we've got our red text. So that's great. All right. The next step will just be updating this home up here to use our new page title component. I'm actually going to call that page title styled. Great. And there we go. So now we're going to come back over here. And, oops, just clicked on a couple of wrong things there. I'm going to get rid of that wrapper. And I'm going to move this title. So now we're removing that H1 page title. We're adding in our title element that we've created. There it is. So now we have a title which takes in children elements, child elements, which is our page title we got from Strapi. In here, in our title file, we're importing this styled version of the page title, and then we're just rendering out the children underneath it. We can extend this further. So, oops, I've got wrapper is undefined. Here it is. I can get rid of that div that I was looking around in before. Now we've got a text aligned center. It's red, and that's our page title. You can see in our React Dev Tools here, we've got components, we've got the app, we've got our title, which takes in children, which is just some text, and then we've got our styled H1 underneath it, which has got the child again, and it's rendered by these, and then we've got some class names here as well. And if we inspect this in the regular inspector, you'll see we've got some generated class names here. And over here, you can see they're generated, and then they're the styles that we created before. So what that means is we have styled components has generated this class for us, and now it is applying it here. And I want to do some nice efficiencies there, so we're not regenerating classes all the time. And if we copy that exact same guy, and we'll drop him just down here. Reload the page. We have this one. See, so it's CJW capital C capital N R, which is the exact same class as up here. So now we know that they're the same. That's been made efficient for us. That's great. So I'll get rid of that. Cool. So that's like a pretty boring web page, huh? We'll add a page container here. This was in a page content before. So let's, we've got our page container here. Create a new thing called page container JS. Page container styles .js. Going to import styled components again. And we're going to export page container styled, which is going to be let's call it a section. Let's call it a section. So it's styled.section backticks. Push them down, and we're going to export default page container style. Cool. Let's have a look around a little bit. Okay, so I mentioned Tilda before, which was this site. This is quite a nice kind of looking website. If you go to the about page, it's kind of got these the padding on the sides. Everything's kind of nice and got room to breathe, which all looks pretty good. Got this nice grid down here. This is like a nice kind of inspiration website. And we'll copy maybe this navigation, maybe some of these white space elements that they've got. So first of all, we need to pad in the sides of our web page. So we're going to have maybe padding. For now, maybe we just make that like 36 pixels. We'll go desktop first, just because this is a desktop stream. And I'll find that a little bit easier to start with. And we can get into other parts of it soon. The mobile side of things. Oh my goodness, can I type? Not really. Props. Return function, which is just going to be page container styled from. Need to have our relative path there. Go to this guy in the props.children. Oh. And now we are exporting out our page container for use over here. If we were using this for like a production website using a headless CMS, we'd probably look at doing something like maybe Next.js or Gatsby. For us though, let's just play around with Create React App, because it lets us be really free flowing and maybe helps everyone understand kind of what's going on underneath the hood of those other frameworks. Okay. So I'm getting rid of this comment because we don't need it anymore. Getting rid of that styled import because we don't need that anymore. Here we can go, we're going to import the page container from components, page container. Here we're getting rid of this. We're going to say page container component. And cool, this stuff can sit outside just for now. Actually changed my mind. I'm going to change this page container. We're just going to undo that. And we're going to remove that app class name. Okay? Because this should really be containing the entire page. Okay, we've got some padding here now, which is nice. Let's come back over here. What are they doing for their title? So their title look like they got 46, transforming into uppercase, a few different things. So let's play around here. Going back to our page container styles. So title styles, that should be like, maybe we'll call that 42. So that's a bit bigger now. We're going to make it left aligned and we'll give it a different color. Cool. That's all good. I guess ideally when you're working with React, here I've used, for that initial build, I was using just sort of standard HTML components with CSS, which is coming out of that style app.css file I had before. As we're going into React more, we're going to be splitting these out into their own components. So we're probably going to have like a link component, a list item component, a list component, a related pages component. We'll be able to kind of really turn this into a bunch of reusable components that'll be something we can kind of bring across everywhere with us. And the longer you work at a company, you'll be able to build out a library of these that can get imported between projects really easily. And that's where a lot of the power of something like React comes from. Cool. So we've got this margin's pretty hectic, isn't it? Let's, if I make that 0, what does that look like? Yep, and then the P has a margin as well. Cool, let's just reduce all of this margin for now then. Title styles, we'll have margin 0. We can leave that paragraph 1 because we're not styling that just yet. Cool. This goes in and out. Perfect. What a good website. Everyone loves it. Great. Got lists down here. We've got our handle at the top. Great. And if I go, maybe like pages about, what does this do? So this is still going to load that page. And if we look in the network tab, XHR, you can see it's still loading that home content. What's this saying? Oh, we need a key. The reason we need a key for a map function is so React knows what to re-render. Your key should not be the index. This is incorrect. The reason for that is if someone deletes a index item, you will end up re-rendering the whole list anyway because all of your index has changed. So what would be better is something that's unique to each list item, like this handle. You should see that error go away. It did. Fantastic. Okay. So we've got our style component here. We've got like a page wrapper as well. Next, let's create some navigation. I'll call it navigation. This might have a number of components within it. So it's going to be import React from React, of course. Should really get a little shortcut for that. So navigation, props, great. What we can do as well is have like navigation items.json. But what's probably better is to use our headless CMS for that to generate that JSON file. So export default navigation. Oops. Render. We're gonna have let's have a div for now, which will be like first one. We're gonna have like a child div, which will just be like an image. Source can be a placeholder for the minute. I think I got those around the wrong way, but that's alright. We'll deal with that in a minute. Okay. We're going to have some items here, which are all going to be links. Cool, and I will just copy and paste that a couple of times. Great. I refresh the page. It's not rendered because I have not imported it yet. Import navigation from components. Navigation. And then what we should do is maybe this can go within here. So you'll notice our navigation now, it's got that padding on it. Something we'll have to change later is maybe creating a content container. So we'll have a page container which wraps everything, and then a content container within it that wraps all of our content. And we can do that. We'll do that after we do our navigation. So we'll have navigation styles.js, which import styled from styled components. We'll have const navigation wrapper equals div, style div. It's going to be display flex, justify content flex start. Align items center. We'll give it a height of maybe 80 pixels. Cool. Import over here. So we'll say import navigation styles, and what do we call it? Navigation wrapper. So now we can replace that div with our wrapper. Navigation wrapper is not defined, so I did not call it here. So we've got navigation wrapper from over here. You notice I use the object to import only a single function here, or a single variable, I should say, because we're going to start doing this, getting rid of our default export. The reason we're doing that is I want to be able to define a number of styles within here. So I don't want to have like different files for each of my navigation elements. I want to be able to have kind of like a navigation wrapper, logo container, logo, navigation list item, navigation link, and have all these kind of exist within this one file. It's very wasteful to have 400 files that are, what, 8 lines. I think that's not very useful and will just kind of frustrate the team later on. So we're continuing on here, we're going to have a logo container. Yeah, this will be a logo. Cool, we're going to have navigation list. We'll call this navigation list item. We'll use the multi-cursor there to do that, and we'll say this one is a navigation link. One, two, three. There we go. No errors, except we definitely haven't made all of the elements yet. So let's import them all and cause another set of errors. What I'm doing here is just kind of mapping it out in my head, what I think it should kind of look like. And once we start playing around with it more, we'll figure out if we actually need all of these things. I'm just going to copy all of the things I'm importing and just put them down here so I can remember. So this one was a div, so it'll be styled div. Display flex. Can probably just grab all of these. For the logo, that was an image. And that can just be display block. Navigation list was a UL. This one we will need display flex. Flex flow is going to be row no wrap because we don't want our items going down to the bottom line. I'm going to go align item center, so it's all the way within the center. Semicolon there. Have all of these. Export const. This one was a tag, so link. This one is going to be displayed block. It's going to have a bit of padding. It's going to have like 8 pixels of padding. We'll give them a border just for now, just so we can see them. Solid black, why not? List item was a styled li. What else? I'm just going to put in padding and margin 0. I will need to do that on the UL as well. You might notice when I'm putting my style rules in alphabetical order. That is just something I like to do. I feel like it's easier to read and neater and all of that. So I got my image size the wrong way around, so that should be 150 by 50. Here we go, cool. So here we can see we've got our page container, then our navigation, we've got this item here, then we've got our list. This should probably, up here, instead of being center aligned, it should be stretch. Stretch so that the UL is the same height, and then this, instead of being center, should also be stretch. So everything. Oops, that's a misspelled margin there. Cool. So let's just go tune those up again. Here we go, margin. Line items. That needs to be stretch. The navigation wrapper needs to be stretched. Cool. And then on our LI, we need to copy this stuff and justify content. Center. Except this time it needs to be centered. Cool. So now we've got like a nice little nav there. We'll put a bit of margin in as well. So margin right. We'll call it like 8 pixels. Cool. Great. That looks good so far, and we'll give it a bit on the logo container. We'll call that like 16, so it's double what the links have between them. Cool. Great. Okay, so we've got this, got our links here. These things aren't going anywhere yet. What we might do is just pages / home, pages / about, pages / contact. All of these links are the ones we've created in Strapi before that you can see over here: home, contact, and about. Click, and it will take me between these. It's doing a full page refresh. That's because we don't have something like React Router yet. That's fine. So what might be cool in this sort of last 20 minutes that we've got is making this content render per page. So right now everything's rendering home. We need to find a way to be able to filter content here. And if we head over to the Strapi docs, we should be able to find that information. Documentation. We have a content API here. Parameters maybe? Filters is what I was having a look at. So we've got users, first name, underscore EQ equals John. And that was something we set up last time, was pages handle equals home. We're using a capital H because that is the name of the field within Strapi. So we'll see here you've got handle with a capital H. If we wanted that to be lowercase, we would go edit the fields, and then we would change our handle down here. But Strapi's fields are case sensitive. So what next? We have this, we have this. We need to be able to get this part of the route and then use that to fetch from the API. So if we look here, we can put our props object into app, or our props parameter, I should say. And if we look over here, we can see kind of some information that's about the page. And there's not much else kind of going on. So we might just use some real basic JavaScript right now. Actually no, let's not use real basic JavaScript. Let's just go straight to React Router. That's where we're going to end up anyway. So let's just get started with that. So we need React Router DOM. Oops. Gonna stop that. So this is doing another yarn add, another yarn install of a package. React Router, if you haven't heard of it before, it's I guess pretty standard routing application. Here we've got like a router, which you can kind of think of as a big old switch statement, which is what they're doing here. So the route, if the path equals about, load the about component. If the path equals users, load the users component. If the path equals the root, go to the home component. And then up the top, they've got a nav, which bumps the user between different components. So we'll copy this import statement. Our package has been installed. We're going to restart application. You'll notice we're using kind of a number of packages here. We've got more and more imports. This is just kind of the reality of using Node.js and the JavaScript and the Node.js ecosystem. If you don't like it, this is probably not the tooling for you, which is fine. But I think you'll find most languages have kind of a lot of packages you pull in for things, especially for big beefy tasks like routing. So we're going to let's have a look at this example here and figure out kind of how this works. So we have a router, which is going to wrap everything. We're going to have links within that. And then we're going to have a switch statement down here, which is going to be like our actual page content. So let's wrap this in the router. Going to bump our page container element up into it. We've got our nav, so we don't need to do anything there yet. Okay, this navigation element is okay. But our page content, whoops, not style, that's not what I want. I want to switch. Now we can have different routes underneath here. I'm just trying to think of the best way to do this, because right now what we have is sort of the same kind of content all the time, and it's changing dynamically based on this state up here and this request. So I'm going to create a new component, which is just going to be called page content. So we're going to have page content.js. Importing React again. Oops. Function page content. We will be using props at some point with it, so just import that for now. I guess just while we're here, while I thought of it, I'm always doing export default on its own line. I just prefer writing that. I think it's more explicit. I also add an extra line here just because that's how linters have taught me over time. Things like Airbnb's linting encourages that or forces it. So you need to do it, and that's just kind of how my thing has ended up. So here these guys are pretty similar routes to what we're doing, so I'll just copy these across for now. Okay, we've got just going to add another one for pages/home. Cool. Great. How's this looking? So this will cause a bunch of errors now because we don't have these components. I'm just going to grab this content here, all of this stuff. here, which is going to throw an error because there's 2 root components, so it needs to all go in just another div. I need to copy my title across because we're no longer using it in that app.js, we're using it over here in page content. Great, so here is our switch. And we can go, I'll just copy this one because it's pretty similar. Page content. We can go page content. So right now we're going to have a set of different routes. Page is not defined, yes, of course, because our state needs to be based on page content, not the app. Okay. Also don't have that. Use state is not defined. Yeah. So what you're seeing here is just, I guess, a bunch of imports because we've moved some files around. Need to make sure our imports are reflected there. Refresh. Can't resolve title because it can't resolve that because we're already in the components directory. Here we are. Okay, so now we've got our links here, so we're going to swap out in navigation. We're going to be swapping out our li elements, or what do we call them before, navigation links. We're going to be swapping those out for something else. I'm just going to put this in here for now. What we're going to end up with, we'll restyle this in a minute, but it's going to essentially be this. Okay, and these need to be no longer a href, they're going to be a 2, and we changed our routes around. So you can see here at the top, it is changing it, and we're not doing a full page refresh anymore. Okay, we're doing it all on page. I think I can do this. And this hopefully won't break. Yep, the link is not there, so I'm just going to do a quick start components and just get that syntax. There we go, so it's styled link, which is there we go. So now we have, if we look in our components, we have a link. We have 2 links. We have a link. Start li, we've got our links here. And we have some other information here, like the anchor itself. Yeah, which is really, really nifty. So now we're kind of combining our frameworks, our tooling. You can see that we're only making 1 request here, where before we were doing like a full page refresh. So now if we look at the components, so in our switch, we've got our routes. So if I look in here, whoops, I keep bringing it down. So this is like changing information here. We've got our location, which has got our path. We've got some like information about the computed match as well. If I'm clicking around, we'll see some information changing. Right. If we're looking on our page content, we still don't have much information here, right? We've just got our state, which is the page content. So we will be pushing some data down here. Boop, boop, boop. In our route, what was that? About this should be contact, and these two will be home. Cool. So clicking through again. Link is used but not defined. So just back over here. Right, imported it and we weren't using it. Right, so a few different routes here where they're kind of changing. And now page content now, we've got a path which is updating. You can see just here, updates when I change. So, this means now we can replace this. So I'm going to turn this, I'm getting rid of the single quote, I'm going to put in some backticks. And I'm going to change this to be props.path. Okay. So we're on the home page right now. If I go to about, did that do anything? It did not. Is there a console error? I'm not really sure what's happened here. So it says it's missing dependency. That didn't happen before. Very interesting. So if I say path equals this, just want to see if yeah, what's going on here. Here we go. So it's doing it on first page load, but not subsequent page loads, which is kind of useless. So what I will need to look at, which might be a job for next time, as we're coming up on the hour mark, is making sure that this will change every time we reload or we switch components. We can see here it's making that request. If I go over here and refresh, it's then made it to the About page. We can see in our components, in our page container, is that it? No. In our page content. So you can see it changing here. We can see it changing, but it is not changing the state. So that's something that we will be looking at next time, because I'm going to need to figure that out. Cool, so thank you for watching. This has been a fun little introduction to style components and using it within a React build. I hope you've enjoyed, and I hope it was a bit informative. Please follow me on Twitter at haydos585, HAYDOS585. Follow and subscribe on YouTube, on Twitch. That's really appreciated. Really motivating to see people starting to subscribe to the channel and enjoying the content. We will be looking next week at dynamically rendering some content. We will also be starting to build out some of our components in Strapi and figuring out kind of what that looks like. Yeah, great. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.